Welcome to the award-winning Tough Girl podcast, now celebrating 10 years. I'm Sarah Williams, and every week I bring you stories from women in the world of adventure and physical challenge. Get inspired, stay motivated, and be part of a movement that's increasing the visibility of female role models, especially in relation to adventure and endurance. New episodes every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time. Support the mission at patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast and dive deeper at toughgirlchallenges.com.
I'm Lily Canter. I am a bit of a multi-hyphenate. I am a journalist that specialises in running and fitness. I'm also a female running coach, and I'm an ultra runner myself. I also do quite a bit of teaching at university, and I have an organisation with Emma, who I co-wrote the book with, called Freelancing for Journalists, where we support other freelance journalists in the UK. So juggling lots of different things.
When I went on your website, it's literally like, I won't lie, I like to be busy. And I'm reading through, it's like, yes, you do. You are doing a lot with your journalism, running coaching, lecturing, podcasting, authoring new books, Ultra Women, which we are going to be talking about as well. But Lily, were you always like this? Like, have you always been busy? Like, when you were a child, were you like doing all the clubs, all the outdoor sports? Were you quite active and sort of participating in everything?
No, no, not at all. This is very much come on later in life. I mean, I suppose I was sporty, but I didn't really tap into it an awful lot. I didn't come from a sporty family. I came from a very academic family. So it wasn't really something that was pushed. I mean, looking back where we lived, I grew up in Guildford in Surrey, and our house was like half of our garden was woodland. So I was always out playing in the woods with my mates. So I was kind of used to being in the outdoors, but I didn't really do sport. Apart from netball, I've kind of played netball consistently most of my life. But certainly, I was good at running, the 100 meters, and I was in the relay team up until about secondary school. And then I think all exercise kind of fell off a cliff, really, as I think it does with a lot of teenage girls. And we moved to Liverpool, and the school I was at basically wasn't interested in girls' sport. It was only the boys that kind of did sport. So I didn't even really play netball or anything. And then when I went to university, I was like far too busy partying to join a sports team. I did go to the netball trials, and they were talking about getting up for runs at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, no way. I'm not getting out of bed before 12. So yeah, it came much, much later. I guess once I got a job and settled down a bit, I did start playing netball again. And then it wasn't really until my 30s that I started running. I've always enjoyed swimming. I've always done swimming on and off. I've joined gyms on and off, but never anything consistently. And I actually joined a triathlon club where I live now in Market Harbour in Leicestershire, I think in like my mid to late 30s. And there was an amazing running coach in this triathlon club. And I soon realised that I really didn't like triathlon, but I really enjoyed running, and I was actually all right at it. But it was only through that coach that I really kind of got into it. And I suppose I've only been running consistently, I would say, for about 7 or 8 years. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying no, not really. But I've always been busy. I mean, again, as a child, I did a lot of music. I played 3 instruments. My career has changed a lot. I think I get bored kind of doing just one thing. I did run a film festival in my 20s. I did a lot of work with a charity at the same time. So looking back, I have always had like fingers in lots of pies. So I think it's just only really come to a head since I went freelance about 8 years ago. And that's given me the scope to be able to kind of juggle loads of different things.
I think that's what's really interesting is like this portfolio career, which, because we're roughly sort of the same age. How old are you?
45.
45, yeah. So I'm 43, going to be 44 in September. And I can't really remember like a portfolio career or doing like a variety of things being, I don't know, like sort of an option. Whereas now in these days, it's definitely much more of an option. And I think having that freedom and that flexibility does allow you to pursue these different passions. And obviously you do have a lot of passions, you know, with your journalism, with your writing, and especially with the running as well. So you said it sort of started much later. Do you sort of remember what it was about running that you really sort of enjoyed?
I think it's because I was getting better at it, because I had been doing it on my own for a while and I'd really stagnated, and I really kind of like, I don't like this. I'm no good at it. When I got some decent coaching and started varying the types of runs that I was doing and where I was running and started to build speed, I built that confidence. And then I kind of started to kind of feel like I was getting better. I started trying different kind of races, started doing some trail running, and it just, I think it was, I do always put it down to this coach that kind of just opened up my eyes to the world of running, that it wasn't just going out and running for an hour at the same pace, doing the same route all the time. And variation was kind of key to it. And it wasn't like an overnight thing, but I think gradually over a year or two, I started to just realize this was something I really enjoyed. And it was kind of an escape. I had two kind of quite young children at the time. It was a way of getting out. And there were, you know, like I say, lots of opportunities to do different kind of events that I didn't really know about trail running. I kind of, you know, my first race was a half marathon. I think my second race was a half marathon. I didn't know anything about ultras and never really heard of them. So yeah, I think it was that coach that really made me realize like the variety of stuff that there was out there.
Yeah, because normally there is that progression, maybe, you know, 5K, 10K, half marathon, and I mean, I imagine everybody has heard of the London Marathon, judging like over 1 million people have applied for like the ballot for next year. But trail running, and actually, it's really interesting what you said, like because when you said, yeah, you know, running at the same speed, the same route, you know, 3 times a week, that does just sound really boring. But
Yeah.
actually, and it's like, no wonder people don't enjoy it. And then when you talk thinking, well, actually, there's all different types of running, and especially like off-road running and trail running. And then I think what can be most important as well is having somebody almost like believe in you and help to build your confidence. Like, oh no, you're good at this and you can get better at this. And I love the fact that what your journey's been, that your running journey's been on. And I'd love to hear more about your I suppose, which was your first ultra, or the first ultra that you know you really sort of remember?
So my first ultra was an accidental ultra. And at the time, I had done the longest distance I'd done was 20 miles. I'd done a 20-mile road race, which was fine. And I was sort of curious about marathon distance. And so, because there aren't any races really between 20 and 26 miles, I found a looped event, which was one of the Big Bear events. I did Salsa Forest, and you have 6 hours to do as many sort of 5.5K loops as you want. And I thought, oh, I'll go and do that and see if I can get to about 23 miles. And then that'll be a good indication of whether I think I can do a marathon or not. Because I was in that mindset of that's what you do. You do a half and then you do a marathon. And so I went to that event and I ended up running 30 miles. And I was like, oh, okay, it's not like as awful as I thought it was going to be. It's a completely different experience. Every loop I was stopping at the feed station and eating, and I was like, there's such an amazing array of food. I've never seen anything like this. You know, there was cakes and crisps and biscuits and nuts, and I was like, you don't get this in a road race. And so I realized that it was just a completely different thing. It wasn't about speed. It wasn't about kind of trying to shove down disgusting gels whilst you were moving along. It just had this much more relaxed approach to it, and everyone was very chilled and they were all doing their own thing and everyone was doing different distances. And so that event yeah, definitely like open the door to ultras. And then I said to Emma, who, I already work with them on a lot of the freelance side of things. I said to her, do you fancy doing an ultra? I've kind of just done this one and it actually wasn't that bad. I think we could do one together. And so we started doing them together, and I sort of, yeah, got her to join the ultra world with me.
I love that, bringing women along. But I'd love to know, like, when you were initially starting out into the ultra world, were there many other female ultra runners around? Was there access to resources and training guides to help you in your ultra preparation and on your ultra journey, sort of specifically related to women?
No, no, not specifically related to women. Certainly, if we're talking 8 years ago, you didn't get these kind of female only recce's that you get now, or Zoom calls where you can ask questions and things like that. The first race we signed up to was actually a multi-stage race in Romania that was 100K. And again, it just had a really nice, like, chilled out vibe. And they did have a training plan, which was actually quite a decent plan, because it was all about time on feet. And a lot of it was just about walking, or just, being on your feet all day. It wasn't about super long runs. It was very much a beginner's guide. So I kind of did follow that. I think I was still in the triathlon club just about at the time. And when I looked at their sort of training plans, I was like, these are just insane. Like, the number of hours and the intensity was just kind of far too much. So yeah, I did kind of have to kind of work it out myself. And yeah, there certainly wasn't anything that was female specific. No. And even ultra plans, like, I remember my husband, when I started getting to ultras, he bought me a book, and it was written by an American ultra runner. And again, the plans at the end of that are insane. Like, the mileage is, 100-mile weeks, and it's just, you just don't need to do that. So yeah, it's definitely still a lot of the information out there is very male focused, which again is kind of a big topic that we pick up on in the book.
Especially, when you've got kids, jobs, etc., and a life. It's just sometimes, like, that would just be so off-putting. But do you remember the first sort of conversation maybe that you had with Emma when you started thinking about ultra women and wanting to write a book about it? How did that evolve?
I think it actually happened whilst we were running an ultra, which tends to be where we come up with our ideas. Yeah, I think we were just sort of running along, and I think I said, we really should write a book about running. We're both doing a lot of it, and we're both journalists, so it kind of made sense. We'd written a book before that was more of a journalism textbook, so I was keen to do something together again, and we were knocking around different ideas. Originally, we had another idea that was completely different, and we took that to a publisher, and they were like, we're not interested in this, but we're happy to meet with you, and let's kind of knock around different ideas. And I think at the time, we kept seeing news stories about women who had won races outright, and sort of features about, are women faster than men in the long run? But they were all, just sort of touching the surface of it. And so we felt there was a lot more to unpack there. And we also noticed, like, in the races that we were doing, that there were very few women, and it just didn't seem to be a space where women felt that they belonged. And we wanted to explore that in more details. Like, if women are so good at these events, why are so few of them participating? So it kind of grew out of our own experience, and yeah, what was kind of also happening in the wider media as well.
So you're having this discussion now, and whether it was like a working title about ultra women and being the Trailblazers, like defying sexism in sport, because you've worked with Emma before. Like, how do you divvy up the research? Like, how do you pull together a book like this? Because there's so many different facets to it, from the psychological to the science to historians to speaking to elite athletes. How did you figure out and divide the research?
Yeah, so I mean, in some ways it was quite straightforward. We basically decided on a round number of chapters so that we could divide them in two. So we each had, did 10 chapters each. And we discussed which topics we were most interested in doing and which ones lent more to our strengths as well. Emma's background is biomedical science, so she did more of the science stuff and I did more of the psychology and sociology. And Emma was more interested in the history, so she wanted to do those chapters. So it was relatively straightforward to kind of work out who was doing which chapters. But obviously with the research, there was quite a lot of overlap. So when we were deciding who we were going to talk to, we would both kind of be on the Zoom call with that sports scientist or that athlete. And then afterwards, we would sort of decide, well, does that fit in your chapter more or my chapter? Or do we need, to use different bits of that interview in different chapters? And then there were other people that were so sort of specific that they were only, for example, if our Emma's was doing like all the history, there was no point me sitting in on those interviews with people or me going through all the literature and reading all the books. So there was a lot of it that we could divide up, and then there were certain people that, we interviewed together as well. And, we'd recommend research papers to each other if we thought it was relevant to kind of each other's chapters as well. And we have a similar writing style, so we could kind of write a chapter and then kind of swap them and edit them and give feedback and kind of try and get the same sort of tone throughout the book.
What really surprised you, maybe from one of these interviews, from one of these conversations, which was really like a massive like light bulb moment for you, which you were thinking, oh my God, why don't more women know this?
I think the stuff that surprised us the most actually was the swimming, was that in swimming there was a really big body of evidence showing that in long distances and open water swimming, all the records are held by women. And the top fastest women are significantly faster than the top fastest men. And that was like quite surprising because and I sort of went away to Google it and I was like, is this right? Like, how come no one's written about this? And I did find like the odd article that was written about it. And it seemed to be sort of known within the swimming world, but not outside of that world. But yeah, it did surprise me. And it was a thing that we had a male editor and he was like, oh, I didn't realise this. And we were like, no, neither did we. So yeah, I think it was those sort of records in swimming were the thing that really surprised us the most.
I think one of the things that I always find interesting, especially with women, and we talked about earlier, like how busy you are with your portfolio career and the amount of different things that you are managing. And women haven't been supported how men have been, because men have been supported by women when they're doing their training, or it's been easier to get the money and the sponsorship and the time off. They're being cared for and managed in a way that maybe women haven't necessarily had. And I just find it fascinating that now more and more women are prioritizing themselves and going after their passions, and there's more money filtering in, there's more sponsorship opportunities, less women are having children and they're focusing more on their sports and what they're doing, and then what they're actually achieving, especially in the world of ultras, is just absolutely, it's really exciting. Like, this is a really exciting time to be around, and especially I suppose from the science. And I know that you focus on like the psychological differences as well. And what were some of the things, especially like mentally, like psychologically wise, that you found really fascinating that maybe you were able to take away and apply to your running?
Yeah, the psychology stuff was really interesting, but it was also quite frustrating because when I started looking into things like, executive function, pain thresholds, and, the differences between the sexes, do men and women think differently? Do they handle stress and pain differently? Are women better at multitasking? Are women better at preparing? When I started to look into what the actual science and the evidence said, it was very clear that there was no differences between the sexes from from a biological point of view. Like when you look at the brain, there aren't any differences. And yet in society, we think that there are differences. And I think that's what was really interesting was the sociological effect, like the cultural framing is that women don't have as much self-esteem as men. Women are better at multitasking because that's what they do, particularly their mothers. Women will prepare better for races because they've got more limited time. So there are lots of things that create these differences between men and women, but it's not down to their psychology, it's down to society. And at first, when I was doing these chapters, I was like, I don't know what to write because there is no evidence that there's any difference between men and women. Psychology is a science. It's about looking at the brain. And again, all the research was like, there's no differences. And yet, clearly, there are differences, but it's very much a social construct. So I found that kind of really, really fascinating. And I think it comes kind of back to a lot of it to confidence. It's having that confidence in yourself. So in terms of sort of taking it into my own training, I think it was useful to know that actually, people are men and women are just as prepared as each other and can cope with the stresses of races in the same way. So it is just all about kind of being prepared and having that self-belief more than anything else. And that it varies from individual to individual. So you kind of basically have just got to not worry about what everyone else is doing and just concentrate on what works for you. And yeah, because one of the things that came out in the research was there's more difference within sexes than there are between sexes. And that's because everyone's so different and has such different external influences. So, yeah, I think very much kind of you've got to learn to take your own path and learn kind of what works for you is kind of, I think, the biggest takeaway for me.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And then you ran 250 kilometers in an ultra race across Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
Was this before the book, during the book, or after the book?
This was before the book. Yeah, we may have been, it was in 2023. So I think the book was an idea at the time. I can't remember if we'd signed the contract yet or not. I don't think we started work on it until September 2023. So it was kind of brewing away, but we hadn't actually started on it, I think.
Because, I just love the fact that you're writing about ultra women and you've got these experiences that you can draw on. I know it's not like a personal book as such. There's obviously like a lot more research that goes on, so it's not like a memoir, but it's still, I think it's important that you have had the experience of pushing your body and experiencing the suffering or the pain or the pain cave and what it feels like mentally, emotionally, and physically to take on these ultra challenges. It sort of like brings it to life. But how was your 250-kilometer run across Tanzania? How did that go for you?
It was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. I think that's my favourite race that I've ever done. Yeah, it was great. It was, I mean, I would say it was relatively flat, although we did one day sort of go part the way up Mount Kilimanjaro and there was a long climb. And on the last day, there was a real sting in the tail because there was sort of an 800-meter climb. It was like flat, go straight up, straight down, and then flat again. But it was a mixture of road and trail. But I mean, Tanzania is a beautiful country. The scenery was amazing. The people were so friendly. The race, it was UltraX and it was really, really supportive race. There's physios and medics like every 10K at checkpoints. You've always, you're carrying your own food for the day, but you didn't have to carry everything for the whole week. So it was quite manageable. And when I finished the race, like on the day after, I was like ready to go again. Like my body was just totally in that kind of rhythm of like, you get up and you go again. And again, I think that's something that comes through in the book, is that women's muscles are less fatigue resistant than men. And so we are able to kind of keep going for longer without our muscles tiring as much. And that was certainly my experience. I was like, oh, I wonder if I could do a 10-day race. So yeah, it was a great, great experience. And I would love to do something like that again.
So reflecting back on, all of this knowledge that you've now accumulated and shared within the book, what would you do differently when you take on an ultra challenge again?
I mean, I think the thing that it has had an impact on is I am much, much more aware now of the setup of races in terms of how female friendly. I perhaps didn't notice it before, but I'm really tuned into it now. So simple things like their websites, if, there's no images or not many images of women on their website or in their marketing material, I will tell them that now. I did a race recently and we did feedback after the race. And my main bit of feedback was, you have no pictures of women on your website at all. Like, you need to sort this out. And within a few days, they changed it. So I think that's actually the thing that's kind of come through the most, is that both Emma and I feel that we're much more aware of the inequality that still exists in sport. And it's not just in ultra running, it's in all sports at all levels. And I'm much more, I suppose, militant about it now. Like, it really bothers me. I get quite angry about it, and I want to change it. Whereas before I was perhaps like, oh, well, I'm fine. I'm quite happy to turn up and run. So it wasn't stopping me. So I didn't really understand that it might be creating barriers for other people. So I'm certainly a lot more outspoken. I joined a women's football team and I felt we were given very unequal treatment to the male team. We were kitted out in a kit that was men's clothing, and I just lost it. And the problem was that no one would back me. Like, the other women just didn't want to make a fuss. And that again is the other thing, is it's difficult to bring everyone on board with you, because we are, as women, we're so used to kind of wanting to please that we don't like to rock the boat. And, sometimes when we do it can, we can get a backlash from it. So it can be difficult to kind of bring everyone along with you and to kind of say, no, this is not right. We should not be in a male kit. Let's refuse to accept this. So yeah, I'm much more like acutely aware of inequality in sport now.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things that when the blinkers have come off, you suddenly start seeing it everywhere. And maybe not every, like, even so I recently did a walk on the Snowdonia Slate Trail, and we walked past this shop in Wales, an outdoorsy shop, and I was looking at the window because there was like a running route on it which looked really interesting. And automatically, because I was like, God, there's a lot of men in these images, I started to count how many men and women were in each of the images, and it was equal. But then I noticed, like, two of the images, it was like the man leading and like the woman following the man in the images. And I was just like, ugh, I hope it's not like this all the way. But then luckily, like, on the other side of the window, it was like the woman was in the first position and the guy was following her. And I know it sounds like little things, but that's what you notice, because it's these subconscious messages which are being fed in from that, and you start noticing it. It's like, even when I look at conferences or when I want to go to like an adventure festival, I am looking on the website to see how many women are speakers, how equal is it, what does the diversity look like, just to see if it's like, I just don't want to be listening to all guys talk about it. And then I suppose, just to build on the third point as well, is I think sometimes it can be almost to do with like the energy levels, where it's like, do I have the energy to fight this? Like, you fight, like, women are just fighting on so many different levels, and obviously, depending on which country you are, fighting for your rights as well. And it's like, and it's just like, can I afford, do I want to push back and then to have the argument and then to have the discussion? And I know the answer is yes. But sometimes it can be like, sometimes I just want an easy life. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
but then that's coming from a place of privilege. Like, especially like if it wouldn't bother me to do more male dominated activities because I've been doing them for so long, but I know like not everyone has that opportunity or that privilege or feel even comfortable in those environments. So thank you for standing up for that and for me making people aware, because sometimes people are just oblivious, but sending that email or just saying on social media, hey, by the way, do you know you haven't got any images of women doing this race? Have you got female friendly toilets? Do you have like sanitary towels available? Do you have a deferral policy if women get pregnant? Like, oh, sorry, I'm going on a tangent here, going on a tangent. But one of the great things about your book is that you do actually have like a manifesto. Is that the right manifesto? Have I said that
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Do you want to share more about the manifesto? Because actually, that sounds awesome. Like, how much fun would that be when you're running along with Emma, talking about what are we going to include in our manifesto? What is our call to action? What change are we hoping to drive with this book? So, yeah, I'd love for you to share more about that and what you included.
Yeah, so we've got kind of 6 key areas where we're calling for action. So the main one, and this really underpins everything, is female specific sports research, because a huge amount of research that's conducted in sports science is on men. And we don't really know an awful lot about women's body, even less in endurance sport. So until we get that right, we are never going to really understand what women are capable of. So I think that that's really important, and it kind of underpins the next key thing, which is about female specific training guidelines. Because again, all of the kind of guidelines and coaching plans and training plans that are out there are all based on men. So, we want to see more training guidance, which is female specific. The other thing is kit, like kit that is actually designed for women, that's not unisex, which basically means it's a small size of men's. And this just drives me nuts. Like, there's so many products, like running vests is one where it'll be a small, and it's the smallest size they do, and it's massive. It doesn't fit me, and I can't wear it, or the straps are in the wrong place, or it just doesn't fit female physiology. So yeah, there's all of that. Like, even sports bras, an insider told me that sports bras are only tested for like a few seconds. I can't remember how many seconds it was, but it was a really short amount of time. You would think that they're tested for like hours and hours, but they're not. So there's still a long way to go with kit. The other big area is about media coverage and commentary. So if you look at some of the big races, they do not cover the male and female race equally. They're not seeing in, say the top 10 women when they are seeing in the top 10 men. Maybe the footage of the actual race is basically mainly the men's race, and then might cut away for a few seconds to the women's race and then just cut straight back to the men's race. So that's a big issue that needs to change. There's obviously all the discussion around equal prize money and sponsorship. Women still don't necessarily attract as much sponsorship in endurance sport as men. And then the final thing, which is just really straightforward, is that races use the She Races guidelines. Like, there is literally a template there that they can use to improve inclusivity in their races. And, more and more races are doing this, but there's still a lot that aren't. And I think actually trail running is probably very good at this, but if you start getting into cycling and triathlon, I mean, they are miles behind when it comes to inclusivity. So those are kind of the key areas that are in the manifesto.
And I would agree with every single one. I'm literally there like nodding. Sports bra test, that's fascinating, because I would be thinking at least like 20 minutes, half an hour, not like less than a minute, like seconds. Like, what's the and breathe, Sarah. Oh my God. This must be no wonder you're doing so much running, because it's a good way of relieving all the stress and the frustration of what's been what's going on with all this new knowledge that you've been learning. Are you in training for another race for 2025 or race plans for 2026?
Yeah, so this year, kind of, Our biggest challenge, Emma and I have decided to mark the book, we need to kind of do something that we haven't done before. And we want to kind of test our limits. We wrote about so many amazing women doing such incredible things that we were like, we need to kind of go and do something that pushes us outside of our comfort zones. So we've signed up for Equinox 24, which is a 24-hour looped race. We're doing it individually, and our goal basically is to run further than we've run before. So for me, that'll be more than 65 miles. And for Emma, I think that'll be more than about 48 miles. So that's like our big one in September. But we are doing the She Trails race in the Peak District, which is 50k in August. I think Emma's just signed up for a 40 or 50 mile race as well in a few weeks' time. So yeah, they're the big ones. And then it depends on my recovery after the 24-hour race, but I potentially might be going overseas to do another 5-day race somewhere hot, but I'm going to wait and see how I recover first.
Oh, like Marathon des Sables?
Like Marathon des Sables, but not Marathon des Sables. That is the kind of race I avoid like the plague. I hate big commercial races that are full of middle-aged men having midlife crises. So I will not be doing that race.
Fair enough. And do you have, because you're obviously, you are a qualified running coach, but it's like I'm a qualified PT, but I still have a personal trainer just because I like outsourcing my training. Do you develop your own running program, or are you working with a coach? How do you make your running work for you?
Yeah, so I've had a coach now for about 18 months. I used to devise all my own training plans, and then I thought I would try having a coach just to see if it made any difference. And I think it has made a difference. I mean, I think it's made me more competitive. I used to just kind of stroll into ultras and just go for a nice day out. But now I am kind of more aware of my time and where other women are in the field, and I have been more competitive, and that's not something my coach has pushed for, but I think it's just come naturally from maybe my training has definitely been harder than I would do myself. Like I thought before, like I was doing like 80% easy, 20% hard, but I'm not sure I really was doing 20% hard. I think it was all pretty easy. I was doing too many miles. I was just doing a lot of long, slow miles. So my coach has helped me get really kind of more specific training, more quality training. So that's been really useful. And also like it means I just don't have to think about it. Like someone else can just tell me what to do. I've got enough training plans to do for my own athletes, but I just don't really want to do my own.
It makes a lot of sense. Lily, how can people connect with you? Where are you most active on social media?
So the best place is Instagram. I'm just at Lily Canter. I mean, I'm on Blue Sky as well and on LinkedIn, but Instagram is the one that I use the most.
Awesome. Fantastic. I'll make sure I put the links to your Instagram. I'll also pop it to your website and obviously share the book as well, Ultra Women, the Trailblazers Defying Sexism in Sports. And Lily, I'd love for you to have final words of advice, final words of wisdom for other women out there who, want to be a trailblazer. What advice would you like to share apart from just do it? Any other advice apart from that?
I think it's believe in yourself. I think women are capable of so much more than we often give ourselves credit for. And it's not until you really push your boundaries and try hard things that you really can get an understanding of what you're capable of. So it's kind of not to be scared of challenging yourself and finding kind of where your limit is. Just, like you say, just do it and believe in yourself.
Lily, thank you so much for just doing it, for writing this incredible book with Emma, for putting it out there, for increasing the amount of knowledge that women have about getting involved in ultras and just helping to encourage more women to believe in themselves and to push their boundaries. And best of luck with all your future races and adventures.
Thank you.
Hey, tribe. Really hope you enjoyed that episode with Lily. What an absolute inspiration. Now, everything that we have talked about today will be available in the show notes at toughgirlchallenges.com. Now, what's really exciting is next week on the 26th of August, we are going to be speaking to Lily's co-author, Emma Wilkinson. So I'm just going to share a little bit more about Emma. So Emma is a freelance health journalist, ultra runner, and the co-author of Ultra Women, the Trailblazers, Defying Sexism in Sport. So this week on the Tough Girl podcast, we welcome Emma Wilkinson, freelance health journalist, ultra runner, mother of three, and co-author of the empowering book, Ultra Women, the Trailblazers, Defying Sexism in Sport. Emma's journey into ultra running didn't begin until her 40s, but once she discovered the joy of going long and slow, there was no turning back. In this honest and motivating conversation, Emma shares how she went from half marathons and road running to self-created 100k adventures in the mountains of Snowdonia. Alongside fellow runner and friend Lily Canter, she set out to research and write Ultra Women, a book that celebrates female endurance athletes and dives into the science, stories, and social constructs around women in ultra sport. Emma talks openly about what inspired the book, how she balanced full-time work, parenting, and running while writing it, and what she learned about the unique strengths women bring to endurance challenges, especially around fatigue resistance, pain management, and mental toughness. If you've ever doubted your capabilities, struggled with self-identifying as a runner, or wondered if your body was made for ultras, this episode is for you. Emma's message is simple and powerful. Don't put limits on yourself. Just give it a go. New episodes of the Tough Girl podcast drop every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time, so make sure you subscribe so you never miss the inspiring journeys and the incredible stories of tough women pushing boundaries. If you want to support the Tough Girl mission to increase the amount of female role models in the media, in the world of adventure and physical challenges, you can support via Patreon. Join me in making a difference by signing up at Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast. Your support really does make all of the difference. Thank you so much for listening to the Tough Girl podcast, and all that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.